if you have a guitarist, you pick up the guitar and you play the guitar. You don't ask the guitarist to build the guitar. I'm from a pretty musical family. My dad's a sound engineer. He's run a PA company my entire life. He's also a guitarist. I got given a drum kit when I was 4, and I've just, so I was playing music my entire life. Guitars were everywhere, so just kind of teach yourself to play guitar. So then I came up through, playing in bands through like my teen years. Maybe we can set the legend straight about the pendulumism. I was never in Pendulum, but I did grow up with those guys and we played in bands, like later teens for quite a long time. So that was when I really started taking music seriously as a drummer. And it was around that time that I started to discover electronic music production. At the time I auditioned for a new degree they were running called music technology. I guess the best way to describe that would be, I don't think that degree exists in that form anymore, but it was sound engineering, recording engineering, but also you'd learn jazz theory, classical theory, piano skills, oral skills. So it was kind of both that creative side and that technical side melded into one. That was the first year they ever run it, so we were kind of guinea pigs, but it was actually a fantastic degree, and I got to spend countless hours in a studio with really high-end gear, and I learned a lot in those 3.5 years that I was there. I first started working on computer music. It was literally on like the Pentium 4 that was in the kitchen, and I had headphones on and I had Fruity Loops or a tracker, and I'm just making tracks from there. And then when I decided to do the degree, I think I'd also realised that I need to upgrade and get my own computer and get some decent studio monitors. So I think I got a $5,000 personal loan, got a pair of Mackies, good computer and a half decent sound card and like a MIDI controller keyboard, and set up in the spare bedroom at home, which sounded utterly horrible. That's when I had my first home studio properly. And having like the Mackie 824s, which were the studio monitors at the time, that I've used 7-8 years. This is only the second pair of speakers I've had after those Mackies, so they lasted me well. And that was a huge step up for me. And that's when you start to look at, mix downs, and I guess the beginning of that journey to becoming a proper producer and understanding how to make things sound good. So drum and bass was always, as much as I've always produced an array, I was always more focused on drum and bass, because as we were playing in metal bands, and we're probably, 17 years old, and we started, I don't remember why or how we ended up at them, but you're going to like MFI warehouse raves in Perth, in like Claysbrook or Fremantle or whatever. Drum and bass was just the stuff that was playing. Like guys like El Hornet, Frantic and Greg Packer and all those really early pioneers of the Perth drum and bass scene were playing at these raves. I remember the first time going, I didn't know what it was. I thought I was walking into a rave that was going to be playing like house music, but it wasn't. And by the end of the night, I was kind of hooked. I think it was, I heard like Conflicts, Messiah and The Nine by Bad Company that night, and I was definitely hooked. And we were all, by we, I mean like me and Rob and Gareth and Jay, like the 4 guys in the band, were all going to these parties together. And we were all hooked and kind of discovered drum and bass at the same time. So that was, I guess drum and bass was one of the things that made me want to dive into electronic music production, because I wanted to work out how to make this stuff. I don't think these days particularly you don't need a purpose-built room at all, to be honest. It's definitely nice to have one. It makes me much more efficient. But I spent 80-90% of my producing career working out of terrible sounding rooms and trying to treat those rooms and get them sounding acceptable. And it would just always mean that, you listen to a mix in your studio, you think you got it, and then you listen to it in your car, and oh, no, I don't have it. It's back and forth in listening on other systems because you don't have a strong reference point. Now that I have this studio, pretty much 90% of the time, if I get something sounding good on these speakers in this room, I kind of know, yeah, that's there. I listen to it in the car. Yep, sounds good. It sounds good everywhere because I haven't got any artifacts or reflections happening in this room that are messing with my ears. If you want to be a successful artist, artist/producer, then definitely you got to write good songs. Some people just have that knack to write amazing songs with no musical theory, no musical training. They can't play an instrument, but they know instinctually they just can hear what a good top line is. Or, most people, however, need a bit of help. So I think, you know, having some kind of musical training is definitely useful. You know, for me, I was always a drummer first, so rhythm has never been a problem for me. However, the second you move into, you know, this world, this computer, this box, right, you realize how intricate, you know, if you're playing a straight drum beat live, how many intricacies are actually happening there that make it sound natural and make you move. Because when you try to create it artificially from nothing, it's really hard. It's not as simple as putting the notes on the same place that you're hitting them on a real drum kit. There's velocity and groove before and after the beat. There's all these things that you start to realize, things that I never even thought about being a drummer, I realized being a producer. The other thing you got to remember is, you know, when you're a producer, you're the drummer, you're the bass player, you're the guitarist, you're the keyboard player. Most of the time, you're also the mix engineer. I'm not a singer. I've learned that that's not my strength. You've got a lot of hats on that can be really overwhelming. And for a long time, I just thought this will be easy. I know music, and then you get in and you're like, wow, it's a very steep learning curve. I hate starting a song from like nothing on that screen. So quite often what I find now is I've always got 20 songs on the go, and once I'll be writing in one song and just experimenting, and that's where all of it comes from. Just messing around, whether it be with something that's rhythm based or something that is melodically based or harmonically based. Quite often than not, it's me on a keyboard messing around with synths, and I get something that has energy, and that, you know, sparks a direction. But usually now I'll be writing one song and I'll kind of go on a tangent and I'll realize, oh, you know what, that's a different song. Let's just place that over there. I'll get to that later or now, whatever, and it splits off, and things just keep splitting off endlessly. I try to keep that going as much as I possibly can. Maybe sometimes it's good to start from scratch, but I don't like it. Making a big mess and getting any kind of energy, that makes me move. And how that relates to me having a sound, I'm not sure. I think the elements that for me make me excited are harmonic movements that create some kind of emotion. For me, there's always got to be an anchor. There's got to be a focal point for a song. I've said this 100 times, you know, to lots of other people, but I've always felt like someone has to be able to hear a song and then say to their friend, hey, have you heard this song that goes? Ugh. If they can't do that, for me, the song isn't really finished yet, or it doesn't have that anchoring moment. And if you look at like every successful song, hit song, you can do that for every single one of them. I think in the earlier days, for me, it was club-based stuff because I was never being played on radio. So it was a very simple job. If it bangs in the club, done. You've done the job. And it was those musical elements that I was talking about previously still apply to that, but more just to the fact of like mix down stuff and like it just had to bang in the club and be DJ friendly and be loud, and the drop had to make people lose their shit. And when you're writing music of that nature, I literally sit there in the studio, put myself in the crowd, imagine me watching a DJ that I like, and I try to imagine what song are they going to play that would make me lose my shit, like make that song. As I've grown older and probably matured as an artist and as a producer, it's probably gotten a bit wider than that. And for me now, if I'm working on an album project, there's always some kind of narrative is being told in a loose way. So that's really informative for me about what's going to happen. And it's helpful because it provides a framework that I can say no to decisions, because I find it really hard. If you're just trying to make a song that sounds cool, you can do anything and you kind of get lost in this sea of infinite choices. Whereas the current state I'm in of work is I have a framework, and if it doesn't fit in this world sonically, then it's probably not going to work for this project. I still really don't try to think about radio or like anything in that sense, because I can't control how people are going to react to my music. It's out of my control, so it's a waste of energy. You don't know if radio are going to pick up on one song or the other, nor do you know if Spotify are going to play this or playlist that. So it's just a waste. Put your head down, try and do the best that you can, express whatever it is that's in your mind as succinctly and efficiently and accurately as possible, and that's all you can do. Throw it out into the world and see what happens. I've been stuck on tracks for years. Songs like Chaos Theory, Light Cycles, they're probably too long. That was like 1.5 years, 2 years of reworking and working. And a lot of that was like sonic. I wasn't the engineer I needed to be to make those songs yet, but eventually I got there. The context of this changes because when is a song finished as an artist in your idealistic world, probably never, because you can always keep making it better. When is a song finished as like your career and like you need to make a living? It's when my manager's like, hey, we need a song by this date. Otherwise, you're losing momentum. That's the reality of being a professional musician and artist, and when you make a living out of it, you have to understand that there's a market that you're playing to. That's the kick up the arse that I need quite a lot of the time, because otherwise I'll just go round and round in circles for years, never finishing anything. I'm lucky enough to have like Lee as my sister. She's very talented, and I can call her at the drop of a hat and be like, hey, can you come up here and work on this with me, and we can workshop. I'll sometimes have an idea, but I'll not show that to her, because I don't want to influence her with my melodic ideas, so I'll see what she does. And then we usually meet somewhere in the middle. With Dark Machine, for instance, it's a great example of, we were workshopping and we just weren't getting really anything that we were super happy with. And then I literally woke up one morning and had like the beginning of a melody in my head and one line of lyrics. And by the time I got up here, I'd written all the lyrics and the melody. And I said, you got to come up and record this. And she thought we were going to be working on it, and she was like, oh, you've already done it all. That's the only time that's ever happened in my life. I'm not great personally at sending a song out to a top line writer that I've never met, for a few reasons. Usually when I have a song, there is somewhat of a story to it that I need the lyrics to match up with thematically for it to work in my head. So if there's someone who I've never met who has no idea what world this song's coming from, and they write something that's it's just not going to work, and it's too hard. Hours put in equal success out. There's no shortcuts. If you're putting in 3 hours a week, it's going to take you a really long time. 8 hours a day, you're going to get further in your craft quicker. There's no two ways around that. Just don't have a plan B, because if you do, you're going to end up going to that when you're using your credit card to pay your rent, and and life is shit, and you're poor, and you feel like the entire world is telling you to give up on this thing that is your passion. I was going to do music whether I was like successful or not. I think that's the only reason I'm still doing it. I still feel that pressure often today of being like, just quit, dude. Yeah. If you make it really simple for yourself, I think that gives you the grit to carry on, which is more important than any amount of talent or songwriting or this or that or money or whatever. It's grit.